Good day to my madam and my fellow friends. My name is Jivakaran Kumar. So from case study that given by our lecturer, I choose the first question which I have to tell the 5 weakness of Westbox Meat Enterprise Company's internal control system. Based on the case study, the first weakness is there is no proper documentation in that company. The report that submitted by the staff to the purchase supervisor is called as purchase requisition form. Once this form was accepted by the purchasing department, the purchasing department will generate the purchase order, but there's no purchase order was created in this company. This can due the purchasing department order the same item, so the stocks will be overflow if they are not producing if they are not order the item followed by the purchase order. So to prevent this, the company should supply the proper documentation. The second weakness is there's no segregation of duty in this company. It clearly mentioned that once the shipment received, any of the employee can calculate the quantity of the shipments. It was the massive weakness because it can do the asset theft. Actually, this is the responsible of purchasing department supervisor. In order to eliminate this danger, the company should provide one group of the supervisors to count the stocks. Besides, after counting the goods, the workers just indicate the quantity of the purchasing report with the check mark. This could lead to errors in their recording. Therefore, the worker should record the goods according to the good receipt notes. So the next weakness is there's no organizational chart in this company. The case study mentioned that once the clerical check is done by the staff, the invoice sent to the purchase department to get the approval. Actually, the invoice should submit to the accounts department, not purchasing team, because the accounts department is one who will give the approval on the invoices. This because there's no proper organizational chart that the supplier can refer. Therefore, the company should provide the organizational chart because it will be make the employer and employee's life easy, because they can refer and know who is the in charge of the each departments, and they will understand the flow of the business, which they will know to who they need to submit their documents and invoices. The last weakness that I found from the case study is the checklist was sent to the treasurer to sign, and then once the treasurer signed the checklist, he will send directly to the purchasing staff, and then the purchasing staff will send to the vendor. This is the big long process. This can lead to checklist error. Therefore, the account department should verify the checklist first to ensure there are no error before the treasurer send it to the purchasing team. This can prevent them by ordering the same stock that they already have in their warehouse. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Maisara binti Masuzah. So today I will answer the question 1B. Tests of control are designed to obtain sufficient evidence to determine whether control over purchases and payable function effectively. So firstly, the auditor need to perform observation procedures in order to know if there is a segregation of duties within the purchase function. So the auditor can make an observation when he is in a physical examination at the company, which he can see whether the company is really segregate the duties or not. And then auditor also can perform document inspection procedures in which he can select the sample of purchase transaction from the purchase journal and verify transaction dates, supplier's name and amount. If auditor perform this action, he will know that the transaction is really occurred or not. Next, auditor also can perform document inspection on the same sample to know that if the independent person check on the quantity and price of supplier's invoice to know whether the invoice is mathematically accurate, which match with the purchase order, and the auditor need to confirm that the invoice is signed by the independent person who in charge. Then Auditor also can examine evidence of the independent check on the agreement of total for purchase journal entries and amount posted to the supplier account. So the auditor can detect the accountant in the company make any mistake or not if posting in the amount to the financial statement. Lastly, the auditor need to perform a cut-off test in which he needs to select a sample of goods received notes before the last number and match with the supplier invoice date to ensure that purchases are recognized in the current year. So that's all from me. Thank you so much.
Okay, hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Fakiza binti Hasanar. Auditors are responsible in plan and carry out the audit in order to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from any misstatement or any errors. However, auditors also face a few inherent limitations where it confines an auditor abilities to obtain absolute assurance. Here are a few inherent limitation in cash cycle system. Firstly is collusion. Collusion are two or more people who are supposed to keep an eye on each other by a control system may instead collude to get around the system. It supposedly should be enough one or two people that have to control the system. This is because we have to prevent any misstatement or any error happen during the transaction. Okay, for an example, there is 4 employees who are in an organization. Ali, Bakar, Chong and Danny. Okay, so Ali and Bakar is responsible in compile all the data of cash purchase. However, Chong and Danny are responsible in credit purchase. So at the end of the day, they compile and mix up both cash and credit purchase in a document. There will be any misstatement that could happen since they mix up the data of the purchase of the cash purchase and credit purchase. So this issue could affect the financial position that will be audited by the auditor. Secondly is human error. As being a human being, I agree that we do make errors sometimes because it happens naturally. We are not a robot. Okay, so human error could happen when there is a person who is working on a control system may simply make an error, such as forgetting to use a control step, or the individual doesn't have any knowledge or understanding about how to use the control system or instruction associated to the system. So this could be caused by assigning the wrong people into a wrong task. For example, as for the 4 employee from the previous scenario has mixed up the cash purchase and credit purchase, there is an order where they ordered and what they received was different, which is there is surplus of the stock and the employee couldn't trace which exact document and which transaction was it from, since they already mixed up the cash purchase and credit purchase in the system. Last but not least is management override. Management override could also be one of the cause by inherent limitation that are faced by an auditor. So, how this management override can cause a few problems to the auditor. So, this management override could happen if there is any error or mistake due to the management lack of observation and so on. So anyone in the management team that have the authority to do so could override any aspect of the control system for personnel gain or to cover up any mistake or any error that have been done by them. Okay. So for example, this is another scenario where there are few credit purchase that haven't been paid yet due to the loss of document. So the management that have the authority will find that there is no other solution. So rather than find another alternative that will cover up the error, since it's going to be audited by an auditor.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Putri Asniti and I will answer the question 2A from Audit of Inventory and Warehouse Cycle. There are several audit procedures that the auditor has failed to carry out in detecting Fariha's fraudulent act, which are inspection, observation, and performance. Since the employee's conduct inventory counts by solely referring to the account sheet, the risk of the fraudster misstating the figure is very high, which in this case has been performed by Fariha. She had added another dummy account sheet to increase the inventory count. Despite the auditor being present on site, they still failed to detect that there has been fraudulent activity going on. In this scenario, the auditor should have conducted a further inspection to confirm the legitimacy of the additional figure on the fictitious account sheet provided by Fariha. For example, the auditor should have acquired help from the other employees to check the inventory stock counting to ensure that the physical stock counting matches the stated figure on the account sheet. Next, the auditor should carry out observation of the client's business processes and operations to identify its deficiency. If the auditor were to be alert and observe how the client's accountant perform their work and how inefficient their internal control system is, the auditor would be able to detect that the audit risk will be high, which then would lead the auditor to focus more on the high-risk area. Fariha managed to get away with adding another fictitious account sheet because she doesn't have a partner or someone overseeing her work. Therefore, it gives Fariha a huge opportunity to misstate a record or documentation. Finally, the auditor could perform the audit procedure of re-performance. The re-performance of particular activities or procedure by auditors can help them to spot flaws and spot potential areas for improvement. In this case study, the fraudulent strategy could be prevented if the auditor redoes the physical account by themselves and match it against the account sheet. The fictitious purchase invoice provided by Fariha as evidence should also be reconfirmed with the purchasing department to ensure that the transaction really did happen. If the auditor still finds that these actions are not enough to feed off his skepticism, the auditor could also get in contact with the supplier from whom they purchased the inventory to confirm that the purchase invoice had actually been issued by the supplier to the client's company. That is all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. Hi, my name is Aklausna. So I will continue with the question 2B. Explain implication to the audit service done by auditor if let's say they fail to detect material fraud done by Fariha. Audit service is taking action to ensure that the clients of the customer are abiding by the terms of the service contract and requesting information from the customer solely for those purposes specific in the contract between the customer and his customer. The implication that will be faced by the auditors if they fail to detect the material fraud committed by Fariha is fraud involves activities intended to hide them, like forging, purposeful non-recording of transaction, or inaccurate assertions intentional to the auditor. The risk is greater than the risk of not finding a substantial misstatement due to errors. As a result, the auditor may assume that the audit evidence is convincing when it's not. The auditor's risk of not detecting significant misstatement in managerial fraud is greater than that of employee fraud because the position of those charged with governance and governance requires integrity and allows them to disregard control procedure to prevent fraud. Other than that, The subsequent discovery of material misstatement of the financial statement does not prove that the auditor lacked professional competence or used inappropriate reasoning and was not in compliance with international standard on auditing. The auditor's opinion is based on reasonable assurance and therefore does not guarantee that all misstatement of fraud or error have been detected. Also, the auditor should plan and perform the audit engagement with a professional skepticism attitude, admitting that there may be circumstances in which the financial statements are materially misstated. An attitude of professional skepticism means that the auditor performs the critical assessment of the validity of audit evidence obtained and is mindful of those audit evidence that contradicts or cast doubt on the credibility of management documents or statements. However, unless the audit discloses evidence to the contrary, the auditor is entitled to accept the records and documents as real and they are not expert in authentication. So I will pass to the next person. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ashwini. Auditor's attendance during physical inventory count is important because it allows for the inspection of the inventory in order to verify that process for recording and monitoring the results of the count are being followed. And also the auditor's risk of material misstatement during the count can be reduced by attending the observation. It can help auditor to collect proof of existence and can avoid any errors during the inventory count. Observing the physical inventory count can improve the report of the auditor within the relevant information gathered. The auditors also looking for the competent evidence by observing the physical inventory by taken and representation of inventory quantities.